It's my pleasure to invite our four panelists, which I'm going to facilitate. And I think they're not behind me, but they're here somewhere. Heather Garrison from Community Builder, Holy City Development Corporation, Community Builder. She has spent the last 10 years supporting neighborhood revitalization, housing opportunities, and economic development in Millville. She works closely with residents and partners to strengthen community-led initiatives. Before joining HCDC, Heather worked for the Millville Board of Education. Her commitment to service extends beyond her professional role. Through her church ministry, she volunteers at the Hope Center, a meal-based outreach program. In 2025, she ran for Millville City Council, and since 2023 has served on the Cumberland County Technical Education Center Foundation Board. Heather and her husband, Donnie, have been together for 25 years and are proud parents of 6 children. Come on, congratulations. Come on up and have a seat. Logan Herring Sr. is the CEO of WRK Group, which includes the Warehouse, Reach Riverside, and Kingswood Community Center, raised in Wilmington's Westchester City neighborhood. Logan's work is deeply rooted in giving back and expanding opportunity. He began his work, it's okay, I don't need that, Riverside in 2016 as executive director of Kingwood, and soon recognized the need for a coordinated, holistic approach to revitalization. In 2018, he helped launch the WRK Group. Today, the organization employs 80 staff and invests more than $15 million annually in youth development, education, housing, health, anchored by Kingswood's Cradle to Cane programming and the Warehouse's Innovative Youth Center. Come on out. Next, we have Jared Mast, serves as executive director of the Greater Easton Development Partnership, where he leads one of Pennsylvania's most recognized community development organizations. An Easton native and Lafayette College graduate, he returned to the Lehigh Valley after earning a master's degree in city and regional planning from Cornell University. Jared has been with GEPD since 2013 and has led the organization for the past decade, guiding a period of significant growth and neighborhood-focused impact. His work includes securing a $450,000 HUD Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant for Easton's West Ward and advancing a resident-driven transformative plan. He oversees GEPD's Farmers Market, clean and safe programs and community initiatives, and serves on several regional boards, including the Lehigh and Northampton Transportation Authority, Easton Cemetery, and Home Easton. Come on up. And last but not least, Diane Shelton. She was born in Neptune Township. She has an MSW, but considers Asbury Park home. She earned her undergraduate degree from Morgan State University and her Master of Social Work from Simon's College. Early in her career, she became the youngest Community Action Program Director in New Jersey. Now in her 9th year at Interfaith Neighbors, Diane serves as the Community Outreach Specialist, representing the organization across city, county, and community boards. Her leadership has supported initiatives such as Asbury Park's Got Talent and Westside Mural Campaign and the award-winning SpringWood Avenue Rising Project, which is featured here today at our activation station. Come on out, Diane. All right, so before we begin the discussion, I'm going to have all of you engage in a partner activity. So we'd love to hear from everyone in the room. So turn to your neighbor, scan this QR code, oh, there it is, and help us brainstorm together. Each person gets 1 minute to share, then take a moment to enter your idea right into the phone. Your responses will appear on the screen, and we'll be collecting this feedback for the foundation through the day's conversation and to share after the event. So you have 2 to 3 minutes to get this done. So the prompt is, what is one strategic collaboration made possible in your work or community? We'll start in 30 seconds. Okay, I hope you guys got a chance to learn a little bit about your partner sitting next to you. Now we'd like to start off with the first program here. Again, the theme is building together. And again, I want to thank the panelists here for traveling from where you came from just to be here with us today. We're going to get some really great insights and have a great conversation here. So let's begin with, I did introduce, all right. I did introduce them, their bios, but let's have each one of you, maybe in a sentence or two, introduce something about yourself that maybe I didn't mention. Well, let's start with you, Diane.
Good morning. All right, I like that. I'm Diane Shelton, as introduced. One thing that you didn't mention, well, I will correct one thing, is Simmons University in Boston. That's where I got my MSW. I'm glad to be here. If I sound like I'm choked up, I'm a little nervous. I'm gonna tell you the truth.
Morning. I'm nervous too, so can share in that. I guess one thing, there seems to be a theme of basketball, at least for me. My cousin works for Philly Mural Arts, and I drove into the conference today and I saw the Dr. J mural, which I've never seen in person before. It's one of my favorite murals. Dr. J just standing like a boss in a suit. My dad played basketball at Temple. They won the NIT in '69. He went on to play pro basketball, so basketball is a big part of my life too. If you haven't noticed, there's basketball hoops that actually, you know, we're in a gym, which is one of my safe places. I don't play a whole lot anymore, but basketball is a big part of how I've engaged different communities from different spots that I've lived in. And in a certain way, even though I'm nervous, it was kind of a nod to say, like, it's gonna be a cool day.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Logan Herring. I feel bad because I'm not nervous. I'm just tired. I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and I flew in from Detroit just to be here. So that's one thing that's interesting about me, I guess, today at least.
Good morning. I am Heather Garrison, and I too am nervous. So other than Logan, I am just honored to sit up here on this panel today, and I thank you guys for thinking of me to come before you guys. So that's that.
Great, thank you. So if you get tired, we got apartment that's a showroom, so it's got a bed and full furniture, so if you need it, let us know. One thing about basketball is I do play with the guys. I'm not a good basketball player, but they let me play with them, I guess because I manage this space. Grounding in place and resident power. I talked about engagement, right? So take us into your neighborhood. Think of a person in your neighborhood that captures the heart of your collective work. Who is that person? What role do they play? And if you want to name that person, great. If you don't feel like you should name that person, let's hear a little bit about that person. You know, what do they bring to the work of building together?
Okay, I'm gonna start. I have two of them with me today. They come from stakeholders in my community. I have the director of the Asbury Park. Sorry, Carrie, I have from the Asbury Park Arts Council and Nina Summerlin in the back. She's the CEO CEO of Westside Citizens United. The theme for today is what I'm all about in Asbury Park. Working together. It's just, why are we spinning our wheels individually when we all can work together and get more done? And so with them and with others like the Asbury Park Public Library, Asbury Park Museum, we all come together and work towards the SpringWood Avenue Heritage Walk. And can I just say something about that? Maybe you all would like to have a little background. Okay. What is the Heritage Walk? I don't know. How many are familiar with Asbury Park, New Jersey? Raise your hand. Okay. That makes me feel better. Asbury Park, for those who don't know, James Bradley found Asbury Park. He was a philanthropist, he was a senator, he was a real estate mogul. He is the one who founded it. But his interest was on the east side. And I hate this divide east and west, but that's the way we've been brought up, and I continue to say that even though I try to stay away from it, but the boundary is the railroad track. And that happens in so many suburban neighborhoods. So even though he had all this going on the east side, for the prestigious hotels and restaurants, he hired those who lived on the west side, immigrants who came up from the south, but they couldn't stay on the east side, okay? So you know what happens when talented people get together, they build up their own, right? And so the west side became known for the music, for arts. I can't begin to tell. Let me just say this too, because everybody associates Asbury Park with Bruce Springsteen. Let me tell you, there's more to Asbury Park than Bruce Springsteen. One, did you know that Danny DeVito's father had a, yeah, Danny. He had, his father and family had a candy store on SpringWood Avenue, okay? If anybody's on Facebook, and I doubt if you all are on Facebook, but if you are, there was something posted when Danny's talking about Asbury Park and what he remembers as a child. So with everything that's happening and what has happened, and you know that what would happen to change all that, it was the civil unrest of 1970, okay? Of course, that changed the whole outlook on Asbury Park, but we're coming back now, and when I talk to some of the seniors, the one thing they talk about is the history, what it was like, because it was the commercial hub. SpringWood Avenue was the commercial hub. So we're trying to move that back, and the first phase of that is to get the SpringWood Avenue Heritage Walk up and moving.
So a little framing for me, we also have a little bit of east and west going on in Easton, Pennsylvania. Easton is a town or a city, a small city, about 65 miles north of here on the Delaware River, just as you cross over from New Jersey. Historic downtown, but a more populated, denser neighborhood to the west called the West Ward, where a lot of our work is centered. Different challenges, everything from urban renewal to public housing, to lack of jobs in the neighborhood. And one of the things we're working to do is just to engage residents and local stakeholders in the process and to get them involved in things. So to answer John's question about just, looking at the neighborhood and thinking about leadership and kind of the next phase of civic engagement, we've had folks engage in different planning processes, volunteer at our market, volunteer at cleanup days, and two of those folks ran for city council in this last round. They're both under the age of 50, which is young for at least our version of politics, and displaced two older white men. No offense, I'm going to be an old white man at some point, but they weren't platforming or running or campaigning when they were working with us, but it was rewarding to see their kind of trajectory and how, when you give people a chance to show up and be part of the change in their neighborhood, and I have a 2-year-old, so my thinking on this has changed in the last couple of years. Multi-generational communities, people begin to think about not just the next 5 years until they move out when they have kids, but growing together in a community, trying to make it more stable, trying to improve the quality of life. And I don't have permission to name their names, but I'll just name their first names. Frank and Julie, I think, are indicative of that, and hope that it inspires more young people, even younger people, to get involved in the civic process and potentially in politics, because those positions, you know, if they're paid, it's you know, minimal, and it's a lot of time, a lot of work if you take it seriously, and it's a lot of headaches. So you kind of have to take the good with the bad and set the table for that. So I guess that would be my story.
So I started working in the Riverside neighborhood of Wilmington, Delaware in February of 2016. Riverside is historically the most impoverished community in all of Wilmington and Delaware, for that matter. Kingswood Community Center, where I started working, has been the heartbeat of that community since 1946. When I started working at Kingswood, I met a young man who, at that point, he was about 15 years old, and his name is Deontay. And he was mentoring the younger children, the generation behind him. And as I got to know Deontay, I sat him down in my office, and I realized he was a straight A student in high school. He grew up in the neighborhood. And I said, well, what college are you going to go to? And he said, I'm not going to college. And I said, well, why not? He said, I want to be a carpenter. And I said, okay, well, what college are you going to? You're a straight A student. He said, I don't want to go to college. I want to be a carpenter. And so it went back and forth for a little while, and then I realized Jesus was a carpenter, so I wasn't going to win this argument. And the next year we did a video about Deontay, and he's walking through the streets in this video, and he's talking about if it weren't for Kingswood Community Center, he'd be dead or in jail. And the video went viral on Facebook, and I had the head of EDIS, which is one of the largest construction firms in Delaware, reach out to me and say, can you connect me with this young man? And his name is Brian DeSabatino. And Brian served as Deontay's mentor every summer, got him on jobs. And Deontay went on to the Williamson School of Trades. And Brian hired him right out of school. Deontay just celebrated his 4-year anniversary of working at EDIS. Not only has he been working at EDIS as a project engineer, Deontay is the project engineer on the $27 million extension to Eastside Charter School, which is right in the neighborhood where he grew up. He's also the project engineer on our new Kingswood Community Center, which is the $52 million project, right where he grew up. Hold on, it gets gooder, it gets gooder. The last piece is that Deontay has a 1-year-old son, and his son now attends the Early Learning Academy at Kingswood Community Center, where we produce 100% kindergarten readiness 4 years in a row, where all of our pre-K students, for the majority of them, are on a first grade reading level, and this is 100% low-income population. So that's a little bit about Deontay, a little bit about Riverside.
For us at Holly City Development Corporation, we focus our areas in our center city neighborhood where it's underserved, low-income area, and we reached out to a couple of our residents who we named as champions for the neighborhood. And these people, like, nobody wants to go to Center City. Like, that's not the population where people want to hang out. But that's where we focus our efforts, and it's been amazing. We have these two people, Carolyn and Keisha are their names. They are champions for their neighborhood. They love where they live, even though everybody has like this negative thoughts about nobody wants to be in Center City, but they love being there. And so they represent that neighborhood, and they come together, they talk to their neighbors, and they help us gather those neighbors. We formed a Chat and Chew, which is a neighborhood resident meeting that we have been doing since October 2024, where we get people's voices heard, and it's just a nice place for people to gather, and it's not sitting at the city level where there's politics involved. It's just neighborhoods coming together, or neighbor residents coming together, where they want to talk about the issues in their neighborhood, and they bring it to us, and then we bring it back to the politicians or the officials that need to be addressed with the areas that their concerns are. So for us, we try to connect and meet those neighborhood residents right where they are, and give them a voice, and let them know that their voice it's important, and they should drive the change that they want to see in their neighborhood. So So that's our goal. We facilitate that for those who think they don't belong at the table, who think they don't have a voice, and that's important for us because we know that they're the ones that are going to drive the change in their neighborhood, and we want to hear from them. So we've been having conversations for over a year. They continue to show up. They continue to talk to their neighbors and give them the information that they need to help move change forward. So it's all about being better together and having that collaboration, not just with the stakeholders that have all the money, but those that live there and they have that experience. And we want to provide everything we can so they have a better life for themselves and their families.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, a couple of themes I want to lift up here. We heard about places, but the people in the places, right? Danny DeVito's father owned a store, right? We heard the theme of change. We heard the theme of prosperity. We heard the theme of access and equity, right? Change happens when people from the community decide to move up into policy and politics. Change happened, right, because of community center, right? You now have a young man who now has a family, right, because of what that community center offered him and others like him. And then this cannot happen without people's voices, whether it's a chat group or whether we're empowering people to speak up at government hearings and other opportunities. So we've heard about the people in the community that you highlighted. Let's hear a little bit about your organizations. If you want to pick one thing about your organization that you think brings to your community ecosystem. We'll start with you.
I'll start. I think what's unique about the work that we're doing in Riverside is, one, we brought a national model to the neighborhood. Purpose-built communities, we are a part of that national network. There are over 25 communities around the country implementing a model where it's 4 pillars: high-quality mixed-income housing, cradle-to-career education pipeline, community health and wellness, and economic vitality. We operate under a philosophy, what we call Thanksgiving Day model, which is everybody brings their best dish to the table. And what's unique about our structure is that I run 3 different organizations, but we work together, pun intended. The Warehouse, Reach Riverside, and Kingswood Community Center. So Reach Riverside serves as the managing partner of the 3 entities, providing all the back office support and infrastructure that one might need in an organization: development, HR, finance, communication, safety and security, IT, data and evaluation. And then the Warehouse and Kingswood are our service partners. The Warehouse focuses on ages 13 to 24. It's a state-of-the-art teen center. And then Kingswood Community Center is our early learning academy, a senior center, provides support for families on their journey to economic mobility. That shared services agreement we have between the 3 organizations really allows them to subsidize one another, support one another, fundraise together. And it's built this very powerful engine that has produced $390 million invested into the Riverside neighborhood in the last 6 years. And so we've done everything from I think by the end of this year, we'll have over 550 units of mixed income housing built. We'll have the $52 million community center done in July. The teen center has been open since 2021. We have more than a third of the teenage population registered in Wilmington, where we see 80 to 90 teens per day, and we employ over 200 teens per year. That facility was designed for teens by teens, and we have 8 teens that run it year round. We pay them $15 an hour, 15 hours a week, and we pay all of those teens that we employ, the 212-week cohorts, $15 an hour, 15 hours a week. The last thing I'll just say is that we believe we work stronger together because a lot of times we work in silos in this sector, and we compete with one another. And we have an abundance mindset, and it's all about bringing the resources to the table, bringing those best dishes to the table. And I don't know about you if you celebrate Thanksgiving, but when we do, we always have leftovers.
I that brings me to working in silos. Like, I say that all the time. My husband says, why do you keep saying that? Because you can't work by yourself, right? It's so much harder if you're trying to carry it all. So we have 40 plus partners that we work with in our community, and we lean on them for their strengths because we can't do it all. We are a 2-person nonprofit organization, so it is virtually impossible for us to do all the work. So we know who our players are in our community, and we lean on them for everything because we're better together. We can't do it alone. So partnership is so, so key in the work that we do. And if you're not leaning on your community, then you're failing because you don't know it all. We have our strengths, but there's others that have strengths. Someone's the head, someone's the foot, someone's the hand. So we have to work together. So can't stress enough that partnership is so key, and yeah, we're better together. Well, that'll be the theme.
So, in the theme of better together, one thing I try to kind of keep in mind, it's actually from, I believe he's still the director of United Way in Philadelphia, Bill Golder. There's an interview where he talked about MET problems, which he defined as money, ego, and turf, and how that prevents positive change from happening in different types of communities, but specifically Philly. Now, I don't work in Philly, I don't know Bill, I don't know the Philadelphia United Way, but I took away from that a certain lens to look through relationships and to kind of reset certain relationships, to understand sometimes where people are coming from, and also to kind of like, to unpack it if it needs to be unpacked. One thing on the money front, you know, partnership, co-investment, co-creation can immediately flip the money side of things to abundance. It's not a fixed pie, and I think sometimes an immature mindset or a kind of egocentric mindset would focus on a fixed pie. On the ego side, I think you got to figure out who you work well with. There's some folks that, you know, it's probably, you might have to work with them and you get through the stuff you have to, but they're not natural collaborators, and you got to be real about that. Turf, I'm sometimes introspective of and try to understand why someone would think that it's their turf as opposed to a shared sandbox. You know, in these communities, nobody owns a one block versus another. Nobody owns youth services for a certain type of youth. I think you can talk about non-duplication. I think you can talk about collaboration. And a specific version of that for us is working with an organization called Community Bike Works. We invited them from Allentown, which is, Easton is part of the Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton Metro. Invited them with the city of Easton to come to town and start serving youth in a different way. Their mission is life lessons through bicycles. So they have an Earn a Bike program where you learn resilience, you learn how to fix a bike, you get transportation through this process. And through our network of funders, we were able to purchase a building that we're now actively outfitting for them primarily. Our Clean and Safe team will also operate out of that facility, and our Community Gardens team, but we bought the building. It's not a $50 million project, but it's close to $1 million project with acquisition and support, and we're really excited about that. We had a site meeting today. My wife's architecture firm is donating architectural services, so we're off to the races. And you know, the other side of that relationship is there's a program in Pennsylvania called the VIP program, Violence Intervention. We are actually the grant writer or the grantor for that grant. It's $1 million grant, which is a big grant for us. And Community Bike Works is actually receiving 3/4 of the grant dollars. So we're the fiduciary. We're making payments to them, mostly in a timely manner. If anybody's worked with PCDC, the e-grant system is one of the harder ones at the state level to work with. But I think that's an example where figuring out whether you need to be in the lead or not, or just supporting or convening, is important. And Community Bike Works for us is an example. We chose not to provide youth services. There's the YMCA, there's Community Bike Works, there's other nonprofits that are already doing it or can do it better. And that for us was like, yeah, we don't need to be, if you want to call that turf, whatever, but we don't need to step on that turf. You guys can do it, we'll help you do it.
SpringWood Avenue Heritage Walk is a small project under Interfaith Neighbors. Interfaith Neighbors is the umbrella. We have many different programs. We have employment and training. We have a Cooler Urban Farm. What else we have? The Launch Center. Rental and mortgage assistance. What else? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember them all. They started off small with just rental and mortgage assistance when the county asked the director at that time to help them with what was becoming the homelessness problem in Asbury Park down by the boardwalk. Well, now we have grown. We have grown to all these different programs. We have the Memorial Center, which is being built now. Joe Memorial was the founder of Interfaith Neighbors. Guess where the Memorial Center is being built?
West side.
Yes, on SpringWood Avenue. It's going to be a large building. We're going to have the Asbury Park Museum is going to be in there on the first floor. There's going to be others on the second, and apartments on the third floor is what they had planned. Okay, we're coming along. It's not easy. I will say that it hasn't been easy, but we all work together, and that's what I have found. Since I've only been there with Interfaith for almost 9 years, but I have one of my staff, one of my coworkers back there who's been with them for many years. It's a joy to come. When I say Interfaith in Monmouth County, they know exactly who it is. And they're willing to work with us, right? I just want to read one thing that I have wrote down here. I had to bring my notes, because as I told you in the beginning, I get nervous, and I don't want to forget anything that I wanted to say. The walk is a strategic development tool. Okay? It creates a cultural tourism asset. It's virtual now, and before you leave, or before we depart this room, if you like to have a bookmark that has the QR code on it, please see me, or where did she go? I saw her. Where'd you go, Carrie? Oh. Oh, see, Carrie or Nina in the back, we have bookmarks that have the QR code, so you are welcome while you're here to pull it up and take a look for yourself. So I was saying that it aligns with planning initiatives aimed at reviving vibrant places. Vibrant places. SpringWood Avenue was the hub of the African American life. And there was others from all, doesn't matter what the race was, they came over. Bruce Springsteen's, his Clarence Carter, is it? No, Clarence Clemens, thank you. He used to come over to the turf after they played on the east side. He used to come over to the west side and jam with, excuse me while I say this, the brothers in the turf, okay? And then he took some of that, what he learned, back over to the east side. So it's so much that people just don't realize that was going on. So I hope that you would get a bookmark, you would go through it, you would hear people who were interviewed, okay? You'll see some of the old buildings. So this is phase one. This is only phase one. That's why we're working now on phase two, which is to have the actual Heritage Walk on SpringWood from Ridge Avenue down to Memorial Drive. Okay. So I welcome everybody to come too.
All right, thank you. I just want to lift one thing out of here, well, two. We heard the word siloed, right? I think that's why building together has to work, and it's necessary for all of us, right? The other thing I heard is the fixed pie. No, the pie doesn't have to be fixed. So it behooves all of us to figure out how to grow that pie of funding and resources, right? And it can be done. Politicians do it all the time. In Pennsylvania, I don't know what year it is, during some budget crisis, the elected officials decided to sneak in the midnight pay raise for themselves, right? They're growing the pie. So, no, pies are not fixed. We can figure out how to grow the pie. So we heard a little bit about what your organizations do and partnerships that you've created. We all know nothing goes smoothly, right? There's always thorns from the roses. So is there one challenge you want to share with us that taught you on how to move for the next challenge? Is there one challenge that you learned from that helps you?
Give it to me. Yeah, I'll set the standard. Okay, thank you. So the one challenge I think was when I started working at Kingswood, and it was prior to even starting at Kingswood. My predecessor had stolen money from the organization and pretty much run Kingswood into the ground. It missed payroll in 2015. It was insolvent. I have my colleague Dave back there. Dave, raise your hand. He doesn't want to raise his hand. So Dave was one of the individuals that convinced me to come over and join the board of Kingswood Community Center towards the tail end of 2015. Unbeknownst to me, he and another Dave had coerced me to come over because a couple weeks later they asked me to jump in as the interim executive director. And what we talked about when I came in was how could we turn around Kingswood and what was the vehicle could we use to do that? Because at that point, philanthropy had blacklisted us. Nobody was giving us any money because of the history. So we looked at our early learning center, which at the time was just a daycare and it was on probation. And there were only 30 kids enrolled in the early learning center when we had capacity for 122 children. And so what we said was, well, if we can turn around the early learning center, then we could really generate revenue to, really turn around Kingswood as a whole. And so in 2 years, we were able to stabilize Kingswood, and we moved from generating about $6,000 a month in revenue, and I'll just fast forward it to where we are now, probably like $250,000 a month in revenue. And what we learned from that is that, and I know it was said a number of times on this stage today, so please, accept my apologies beforehand to my fellow panelists, but we don't believe in the term nonprofit. We believe in tax-exempt businesses. Nonprofit is a tax code, it's not a business strategy. And when we run nonprofits as nonprofits, which when you say that it has a negative connotation, people automatically say, oh, that's cute, you run a charity, right? But when you run a tax-exempt business, you understand you have to drive a profit in order to reinvest in the business and reinvest in your community. Because ultimately, businesses are created to solve for problems. And we're solving for some of the hardest problems in the world. And in order to do that, you have to drive revenue, you have to drive profit to solve for those problems. And ultimately, if you solve for the problem, then you're no longer needed. And wouldn't we all love to have that be the issue? And so that's what we learned as a challenge, and we've taken that across the 3 organizations. And we run 3 tax-exempt businesses, and we reinvest those profits every single day.
One of our challenges has always been local government. As a nonprofit, it's hard to leverage all the funding. Like the city is privileged to get some funding that we can't get. So it's been a challenge working with some of the local government officials to support the work that we do. Our work is always going to go on with or without them. We're going to do what we need to do, and thankfully we have awesome funders like the Regional Foundation that know what we do and support our work, so that helps a lot. But it's very challenging when you don't have the support of the local government, because they can leverage funding that we can't leverage and vice versa. So again, going back to being better together, it would be so beneficial if we could have that support from them, but we know that in a perfect world, things would all line up correctly, but it doesn't always work that way, which is what inspired me to run for local government in our last election. I missed it by 40 votes. There were 5 open seats, and there were 19 people that ran, and people wanted change, and that's what drove me to do it. And I thought, if I could just get in there, like we can do some things and we can make some changes. But I'm happy where I'm at. I know that we're going to keep moving our work forward with the support of funders, like I said, like you guys, and yeah, so that's always been one of our challenges, and it will continue to be until they support all the work that we do. But again, we're going to keep moving forward with or without them.
So I would say we have similar municipal challenges. You know, although I mentioned political turnover earlier, I think we have a strong mayor form of government and a mayor that likes to be part of almost every decision that's made of any consequence. You know, I think civic engagement is somewhat limited because of that, and like participatory planning or participatory budgeting or community engagement process for projects sometimes feels performative. So you're showing up, you know, at the request of city government at times when you know that a plan is maybe already 100% baked. And I would say that's a hard place to work in. You have to kind of figure out how to maybe drive a wedge and reset things or find areas of compromise. There's a decision-making framework called DARCI, where it's, you know, D stands for who's the decision maker, A stands for who's accountable, R stands for who's responsible, C stands for who's consulted with, I stands for who's informed. And a lot of times it feels bad when you're kind of just pigeonholed into the I, where you're just informed of what's happening. And I mean, it'd be great to get to consulted with on a regular basis, and in some cases actually be the decision maker. So I don't think that's a unique challenge to Easton. Funding plays into that too. You know, we were told basically last month that, like, hey, we know you've gotten CDBG funding for the last X number of years, but we kind of want to sprinkle it around a little bit different. And the city government, through the redevelopment authority, which is in City Hall, determines those recommendations to City Council, and we have to choose whether it's worth fighting the fight to maintain that level of funding, which 50 grand for us or 45 grand for us on an annual basis is meaningful, but you know, we have to figure out which fights to fight. So it's funny, running for office is a theme here. I have a couple of friends that are graphic designers, and we spent a weekend tubing down the Delaware, and we kind of talked about running for political office, and the tagline, they had two taglines for me. One was big boy, big ideas, I'm a big person. And the other was, thanks for putting up with me. And the thanks for putting up with me part is like, you have to figure out when to be difficult, when not to be. You can't just roll over on everything, and I still am challenged by that, of when to fight. I grew up playing basketball, I'm competitive, I want to win. Our version of Dr. J in Easton is Larry Holmes. And you know, he was a local legend that punched, almost has the record for undefeated wins as a heavyweight boxer. So we're a fighting community, but you know, I have to check myself from time to time and figure out when the right time to fight is.
As I listen to everybody, I think I couldn't add anything more than what you have already spoke about, like funding, resident civic involvement, because I have a problem with getting the full support of everybody at City Hall. And I do realize that what's important to me is not important to everybody, okay? And so I learned to stand up straight, keep moving, and as long as I keep my eye on the prize, I know it's gonna come. So I don't have much regret for anything. When things go awry or array, or however you say that word right now, I just trying to figure out another way. Plus, I have people in my network and partnerships who help me. That's another good thing about together, being together, because you can count on others whose ideas might be different than what you have. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So I'm happy for you, Nina and Carrie.
Thank you for that. One thing I think Logan talked about, he mentioned tax-exempt business. Does that resonate with you? aren't nonprofits held accountable when anybody gives us money, right? Whether it's a foundation or grantor, there's a contract, right? So for-profits' mission is to maximize shareholder value, right? The investors. Tax-exempt businesses who are nonprofits, our mission is to maximize the benefit to the individuals in our communities, right? There's a big difference there, but yes, we have to run it like a business. So we have about 10 minutes left. There's a couple of things to go through. So I'm going to pick a couple of you. You guys can decide who, two of you, borrowing ideas. So is there something that you just heard from a peer, either today or previously, that you have already borrowed and stolen, or would like to borrow and steal, that you think would benefit your community or the work that you do? And how would you adapt that in your community?
Well, I think we're going to trade, I guess, then. I like Logan's framework of bring your best. I think, there's, every day we show up to work, and this isn't just about community organizations, it's about me personally. I feel lucky to do what I do in terms of, I live in the West Ward neighborhood of Easton. Growing a family there, it's not a situation where it's a regional organization trying to do things all across the entire region. And I have friends in the community, my mom lives in the community, my wife's parents live in the community. So I feel really lucky, and I think part of that, like connecting that to bring your best, that's also for the staff that works for our organization. And how that connects to a culture of abundance is something that I'll take away from this. We're a landlord. We also have kind of things that function as businesses. So that's something I think about and also work with our staff on. But I think, the more fundamental commitment to, we have to have some margin on our business to survive, is something that I need to get better at as a leader of a nonprofit and, de facto CFO as well. So I think that's something that some of the nonprofits in the room, it's a burden, but also an opportunity when you are both the CEO and the CFO. It's not necessarily the best from fiduciary and accountability standpoint, but in an early stage of an organization, you have a lot of responsibility and flexibility to move things forward.
Mine is quick. I'm going to borrow from Jared. I'm known as an acronymologist. I grew up with a bunch of women who played Scrabble, so everything is like an acronym to me. And DARCI I hadn't heard before, so I'm definitely taking that back to the office. So Dave, watch out, it's coming back. And I want to put DARCI into motion. I like that.
Just really quick, I love hearing from other people and what they're doing. It's not like it's a cookie cutter, thing, but talking to you about your teens and all the things that you do, like, that's inspirational for me, because I know that's an age group that's hard to reach. So hearing from other people and seeing what other regions are doing has always been something that I love to listen to.
I think I'm taking back a little bit of what everybody has said, because my whole goal is just to rebalance the cultural narrative for SpringWood Avenue to Asbury Park. And so I'm listening to you. I'm sure Heather and the rest of them were taking back a little bit of everything what you said too, and I thank you for sharing everything.
Thank you. And then we have one more section here, but just to reemphasize Jared's acronym. So, hence this day forward, the name Moses will be stricken from the records, and Jared will now be known as Acronym Man. Last question for the panel here. What should we all be listening for today as we move into the strategic planning conversations in the breakout sessions?
I'll start. I was just watching an interview with the director of Sinners, I think Coogan, is that Brian Coogan, and this is Kugler, that's right. And Ben Stiller, I think, was interviewing him, and he was asking about like what he did during the pandemic, and he started talking about baking. And he's like, I wanted to make croissants, which I worked in a bakery for a summer. Croissants are really tough. He talks about how tough they are. But the reality was he wasn't even talking about croissants. He got to the point where he was talking about sinners, and he's like, the movie is there for a person that just wants a croissant and wants to eat it. But if you care about baking, you want to count the layers, you want to look at the layers. So my answer is like, sometimes you don't know what to listen for. Just be an active listener, be patient with your responses, and let people finish their thought, because in the case of that interview, we wouldn't have gotten to the meat. It would have just been this passing, yeah, my bread's, I made sourdough during the pandemic, but he had something much bigger to say, so that's something I was thinking about yesterday, I think relates.
I want to stay on this theme of tax-exempt business. And the reason why I want to do this is I'm a big proponent of not asking people to give their time for free. And I think in this sector, we always want to center residents, we want to center voice, we want them to come to meetings and provide ideas, but we don't want to pay them for their time. And you're asking people with the least amount of disposable income and time to give it to you for free. And so let's think about how we even position ourselves in our communities as leaders, right? How we can compensate people for their time. We have something called Village Impact Promoters, VIPs, where we pay residents $1,000 quarterly to do those things. I already talked about how we pay our teams. But what I want to challenge you all is you all are experts in your own right. And a lot of times we get funding and we pass through that funding to third-party consultants and pay them enormous fees to help us do things when the brain trust, the talent, the expertise is in this room. So I'm gonna challenge you all to dignify your relationships with your partners, with your collaborators, on how you actually formalize an engagement with them and pay them to provide that expertise that they already have, instead of going out and paying these third-party contractors and making them rich, when we can create this circular economy in our own ecosystem. Therefore, we won't have to rely on the regional foundation and other philanthropy to always bail us out of these tight jams we put ourselves into, or the world puts us in, given the economy or anything else that goes on around us that we can't control.
I would say for today to just be open-minded, listen with intentionality, and learn from others. We can always do better. We could always do more. And I think it's important to learn from our peers and to get whatever little nuggets you can get from the day. It might not be something profound that you hear today that carries you all the way through, but you'll remember those little DARCI moments and keep them in your pocket and use them when you can, when you need them.
I know there's a distinct difference between listening and hearing. So whenever I'm in meetings or whatever, I try to make sure I'm doing both, and giving people and being patient with others. I don't mean to go on a religious thing, but they say entertain as angels unaware. You ever heard that? No? Oh, entertain as angels unaware. Okay? So, anybody who comes in my midst, right? Okay. Anybody who comes in my midst, whoever frowns up their nose at them, I don't, because I want to hear what you have to say. I might not use it right now, but you might be somebody I might need to call on, or you might need to call on me. You never know. So I try to always carry that with me, and I like what Hugh said, and you, sir, and I just think we have to be patient with one another. Be patient. And we'll move forward.
Great. Let's give them all a round of applause, please. So to close us out, we have another activity for you. Oh, there it is. It's up there already, okay? And as we move toward the closing, we'd love to bring your voices back in the room. So what are the top 3 things that would help you strengthen your collaborations in your neighborhoods this year? So scan the code and enter something in there. And while you do that, I want to make a plug for Policy Map. amazing, amazing database. How many people in this room are using Policy Map? If you haven't, you got to go talk to that man sitting behind the table. Right? He looks a little bit lonely. Okay, so during the break, go see him. The mapping ability of that software is simply amazing. For instance, it could probably map the people in this room right here, all right, and tell you from the data that the closer the people are sitting to the stage, the less they are on their cell phones. The farther they are from the stage, the more people are using cell phones, right? Isn't that right? They'll collect that data. So scan the QR code, and we'd love your input. And I think that's the end of my session, right? Thank you. Thank you.